All right, thank you guys. Come on in, take a seat. We're going to get started right now. All right, so the three of us up here got really, really lucky because we get to interview Mr. Robert Palmer, who is a mentor, an innovator, a builder, and just all around pretty amazing guy. Wouldn't you agree?
Thank you, David.
And it's not every day that you get to sit down with somebody with the mind that operates in such a fashion that you get to ask them questions, pick their brains, and do it in a somewhat public forum so that all of you have an opportunity to listen to the way that this mind works, and maybe even take a lot of it away and implement it into your business the way you would know how. So thank you for allowing us to do this.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a great way to cap off what has been an amazing 2 days of sharing knowledge. So big shout out to everybody who's been with us for the last 2 days. It's been amazing. This whole event kind of came out of nothing. It was going to start with a small mastermind of just like 15 or 20 of us. And we're like, you know what? Let's open it up to everybody and let's bring in these chairs and fill the room. And then from there to say, okay, well, let's fill the gaps and let's add these breakout sessions. And all of this happened in like 10 days. So it's been really cool to see. And this is definitely something that we want to make a real fixture here at LPT Realty. And it's kind of fitting because this building used to be an ITT Tech. It was a college. And so bringing a little bit of that university vibe back here and having knowledge and education inside these halls again is very fitting. So this has been a great couple of days.
And what's awesome about this is I've been able to learn more about Robert and like pick his brain and get into his mind and try and figure out what he's thinking about, because he does things so differently than what we're used to in the real estate industry. And today, like his ability to pivot it's pretty crazy how fast it happens. And today we're having a conversation this morning, and this is where this came from. And I asked Robert, I'm like, hey, do you want us to tee these questions up to you before we start this mastermind? He said, nope. I said, what's our limits? Grill me was pretty much the word. So this was created today, and we got some hard questions for him.
Yeah, I was in line at Starbucks, and we're like, why don't we flip the last panel? And this was Joey's brainchild, and I helped pivot, and here we are, and I'm excited to do it. So yes, and I did not get any questions beforehand. I hate that. I want to be genuine and answer things on the fly, and you're going to learn the questions as I do. So let's do this.
So we did. Yeah, we talked a lot. We discussed a lot. This was an early morning phone call. I was barely awake because Joe and I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning talking. So Robert, budget related. When RP is creating a budget, what vital signs are most important to you?
This is interesting because we're in a business that is very dependent on the market. Real estate, mortgage, all of us. If anybody made budgets for 2022, they're probably not getting hit. If anybody made budgets for 2023, they're probably not getting hit. And there's a size of scale where you can outrun the market. If you're small enough, you can out hustle, you can add a couple people to the team. But when you hit a certain size of scale, you can't anymore. If you're top 5 in market share, you're going to ebb and flow with the market, no matter how hard you try. And that's something I had to learn. When I heard somebody say this the other day, and this was me early in my career. They said, I'm refusing to participate in the real estate downturn. And at a certain size, you can 100% do that. A certain size, you can hustle, you can door knock, you can make extra calls, you can absolutely fight the market. But you outrun that really quickly. And as you build a team at scale, as you build a business at scale, you wake up one day and you realize that you are following the trends of the industry. And that was tough for me. And so back to the kind of budgeting concept, it's really hard to do when you know that as these things can change, those budgets have to go out the window, and you have to be ready to pivot very, very quickly. And so we budget annually, we budget quarterly, we budget monthly, and at times we budget weekly. And right now is one of those times with mortgage rates moving as fast as they are. We are making advertising budgeting decisions every Monday, every single week. I get a 4-week outlook, and we're adding or cutting lead spend, TV spend, radio spend, based on what the Federal Reserve is doing, because it has that big of an impact. Because at our size, we are going to ride the waves of the market. And so as you scale and as you grow, you lose some of that control, I go, you go from being what would be a speedboat where I can speed it up, slow it down, pivot on a dime to a freighter where you have to make those turns really far in advance. And that means as the market is pushing you, it's hard for you to push back against it. Literally for us, we would have to add a whole new state. We would have to, double lead spins. We would have to maybe add 5 new states in order to fight a market trend like the one we're seeing right now.
And perfect answer to the next question, because we're going into a market and to a potentially a recession. So when you're focused on growth, like how do you carefully navigate that inside of your business when growth is the most important thing that we're focused on, especially right now?
Yeah, I think a big part of this, and you'll hear me say this a lot the more you hang around, when we're in a boom, you have to be preparing for the next bust. When we are in a bust like we are now, you are literally preparing for the next boom. You can't live for the market that you're in. And, so when we're in a downtime right now, you should be looking for talent and hiring and growing, which is not what most people are thinking about right now. They're thinking about downsizing and going the other way. And then we're in a boom when everybody else is hiring like crazy and paying signing bonuses and going nuts. We're not, because we're preparing for the next bust. And so being nimble, being creative, but at the same time too, having that long-term plan. And look, financially, you have to be able to do this, right? You have to be able to say, I'm going to make less for the next year because I'm going to add people to my team. I'm going to hire people. I'm going to prepare for the next increase because there is zero chance that we don't see another cycle. I mean, that it's just, it is the definition of our business. There will be a bottom and then we'll come back up. And so if at the bottom you are preparing for the next rise and you're getting your teammates in place, you're getting your leaders in place, you're getting your systems in place, if you can afford to do that, which usually comes in the form of delayed gratification, right? Like right now, people who are cutting team members are saying, well, I want to keep driving a Lamborghini, so I got to let go of half my team because it's a $6,000 a month payment. Well, get rid of the car, personal sacrifice, and put that money into a team member who will make you the cash price of a Lamborghini during the next rise if they're in position and ready to go. And so it's being able to take a long view, but taking a long view requires financial resources. You can't take a long view if you can't pay your mortgage. You can't take a long view if you lease that Lamborghini and you're stuck with it. And so this is where the decisions you make during the boom dictate how well you can take care and prepare during the bust for the next one.
I'm glad that you brought that up because my next question has to do with marketing budgets and sacrifice. And when we did the New You Recon event and you were on stage with me and we were having a conversation about reinvesting into your business, you told the story on how you were already spending $1 million a month or a year. It was a year at the time, a month. So, and this is guys like little by little, right? He spoke about, having a budget and then every time he made money, reinvesting it into marketing. And you were spending $1 million a month in marketing, yet you were still driving the same shitty car and living in the same shitty condo.
Yeah, so it was an old car, but it wasn't a shitty car.
Okay. That's what you said on stage. I'll check the replay, but
yeah, I don't think I said shitty car.
No. All right.
But it was the same old car that I had for a long time that I had bought, that I had paid cash when I was doing better in life. It was a G-Wagon, but it was now like a 10-year-old G-Wagon. It really did ride like, it rode like crap. Like the suspension was terrible, but I would take mail to the post office in the back of my G-Wagon, and the people at the mail office thought this was the funniest thing ever. But I didn't buy a new car. I kept driving that same old car, but we did live in an apartment. My now wife and I, girlfriend at the time, were living in a 2-bedroom apartment right by the office. And that was our life. And at the time, we're spending $1 million a month on TV commercials and radio. And I very easily could have spent $500,000 on TV and radio and put the other $500,000 in my pocket. But through discipline and through this idea of like delayed gratification and wanting to build and wanting to grow and wanting to achieve a higher level of success, we delayed that. And so, at the time, I was taking next to nothing out of the company. I was living on credit cards. I was probably paying myself like 50 or 60 grand. And paying my then girlfriend, now wife, 50 or 60 grand. I think she was actually the one paying the rent for the apartment. But then the first year that I said, okay, like we did it, it was 2014. And I made over $10 million take home that year. I took over $10 million out of the company. So,
and so where do you find that discipline? Because most people don't have that. And that's, I mean, you didn't grow up with a rich family, with a rich dad to tell you, hey, this is how you do this, right? Son, like guide you through this. Like, where did you find that discipline? And how did you begin to apply that in life?
Yeah, I think I think what I recognized about my personality is, for me, it's like it's all or nothing. You know, I'm an extremist. You know, it's all in or all out. And so I knew that there wasn't a halfway point for me. It wasn't like, oh, let me invest half of the money back into advertising and take the other half out and live some amazing lifestyle and think I'm going to keep working hard, because that's not who I am. You know, getting comfortable is our greatest enemy. And, you know, in 2017 and 2017, when Reagan was born, and I kind of flew off into the sunset and I got really comfortable and I didn't think I was coming back. Something changed in me, like I guess motivations changed, but up until that point, I just very much had to keep myself uncomfortable. And so I knew the minute I quit putting it all back in, the minute I bought that first new car, which, by the way, I went and I bought a Bentley and an Aston Martin on the same day, cash, you know, after driving that G-Wagon for, 10, 12 years, went and bought a couple really nice houses, one that we moved into and one that we tore down to the studs and remodeled. I knew that once I kind of ripped that Band-Aid off or broke that seal, that the level of sacrifice I was willing to make was not going to be the same anymore. And so I really wanted to hold it back as long as I could. And that $10 million number got stuck in my head. And I really said, you know what? I'm going to delay sacrifice until I can take home $10 million a year. I had made over $1 million a year in my early 20s in the mortgage business. So I'd kind of had that taste of it. That's when I bought the G-Wagon originally. And then when 2007 happened and I lost everything, I went from making $1 million a year to living on credit cards and founding RP Funding, just a lot of years, 7 years of sacrifice in the middle there. But I knew by delaying it, and I just that $10 million number got, I think, just the extra zero, right? Like this, I want that extra digit. Like at some point we all want to chase 6 figures, and then you're like, all right, well now I'm going to chase 7 figures, and then I was like, all right, well I'm not pulling the Band-Aid off until I'm at 8 figures, and then I actually hit 9 figures once in the last couple of years. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, you said something, you're all in or all out. And I think one of the questions we had, it's funny how these all fall into place. But, how do you decide to make the decision where and when? Like, for example, everybody in this room probably has a budget. And if I go all in right now, shit, like what does that, how do you determine? How do you decide that? And on what?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it is how much are you willing to sacrifice? What can you scrape together? What are you willing to live without? What that new car, that $6,000 a month car payment for a really, really nice car, what is that going to do for you? What could you, if you put that same $6,000 into Google pay-per-click, what is that going to do for you long term? What is that investment in your business going to do? And it's just this constant choice of making decisions. And one of the hardest things for me was, Jill, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was forcing her into this crazy vision of mine. Because she's like, why? Like, what's happening right now? But at the same time, she really did embrace it. In the beginning, I think she was like, what's going on? But then she actually embraced it so much. There was a year, I want to say this was probably like 2012. I bought her this really nice bracelet from Tiffany for Christmas. I think it was like $5,000. And she made me take it back and put that $5,000 in a direct mail. And that was totally her. I was embarrassed taking the thing back. I'm like, geez, these guys at Tiffany, I think I'm a cheapskate. But she's like, look, I appreciate the gesture here, but I know what we're doing right now. And I want you to return this. And we put that $5,000 into direct mail. And that, that was her committing to this vision with me and really believing in the delayed sacrifice and what we were doing. And now she's got a jewelry full of really expensive Tiffany. And we're like on their super VIP list. And so in the end, it all worked out. But again, by delaying the gratification, instead of a $5,000 bracelet, it's a $500,000 necklace, 5-7 years later. So what do you want to delay in order to achieve those goals later in life?
That's awesome. And it's so hard to comprehend, I guess, like where you're at and what you're doing and your mind. And I guess going back to the building a team inside of this new world that we're living in this organization, and a different model than what we're used to in this industry. How do you see the structure actually looking inside of specifically LPT for someone looking to grow a team as large as Jenny Weimer's?
Yeah, so I think we purposely built these comp plans. A lot of people look at the 100% plan and say, oh, you did the 100% plan so you could attract a lot of low quality agents, or you're going to attract a lot of agents who don't do as much business. I hear this a lot. It's so interesting because that's not it at all. we devised that plan because we recognize the real value that a brokerage can bring. And what we recognize is that someone else has to make up that gap in value. And so if you're a newer agent and you need more help, and you're coming out of a brokerage where you're used to spending $15,000 on a cap or $23,000 on a cap, and you come here, there's $10,000 up for grabs to join a team. Why are we so focused on team building? Why are we so focused on teams? And there are things that for a new agent, we will just never be able to provide at scale. With 100,000 agents, 50 states, the amount of people we can bring into this room as a percentage of our culture is very small. So who's going to carry that forward? The team leaders. And so by building a model where we take less on those agents, we are freeing up the ability for them to join teams. And then we didn't put a lot of strings on it. Other brokerages, they'll give you a half cap or a quarter cap. At Keller, you can get your cap down to 8,000 or whatever if your team is big enough. Or at EXP, you can get your cap down to 4,000 if your team is big enough. You meet a bunch of requirements. But how are you supposed to get there? How are you supposed to get to 30 or 40 agents when they're charging their full cap, and then you've got to try to pile something else on top? Miranda talked about at her brokerage, because the splits are so bad, there's no room for a team leader to monetize and help them participate. And so we built a model that allows team leaders to monetize that gap, to come in and provide value in that window without the end agent being overcharged. And that really is what it's about. So I see us being a brokerage of teams. And then I see this network concept that I've talked to some of you about, this idea of a team of teams becoming the real end game. And, Keller pioneered expansion. It didn't really work from what I've seen, because the idea that a rainmaker was going to duplicate themselves into 10 different markets, that's tough, okay? Well, think about the original vision for a team. The idea wasn't that the team leader would do all the direct agent work themselves. The idea is that the team leader would elevate themselves to a new role to then lead and guide agents who are doing the actual work. So if you're going to expand into multiple markets, you need someone who then elevates themselves to a new role. And we're kind of internally calling this like a network leader. And this isn't a downline. This is a financial arrangement where you're saying, hey, I run a team in Tampa, and I'm going to join Robert's network, and I'm going to pay them a piece of the commission from all of my deals because I want him to help me build my team. And then I'm going to help my team members do more real estate. And so this idea of a network where someone who wants to be in multiple markets, you're not going to do that directly. If you have 10 agents and you got 2 in each market, 5 across the country reporting directly to you, that is not going to work. That's why the original expansion models failed. But if you go find a rainmaker in that market and you bring value to them, you bring a network value proposition to them, and maybe that's 5% of the commission, maybe that's 10% of the commission. It's a lower number because you're providing a different set of value. But by being that leader then to teams and team leaders in the local markets who then lead agents, that is the structure I see. Because what's happened is the brokerage layer has continued to kind of move further and further back into the background. We're almost at this point like Visa or MasterCard. We're the ones just moving the money around and checking compliance. The bank has to make the actual decision. The bank actually funds the credit card. Visa and MasterCard just move it around. The brokerage is the underlying pipes. And so team leaders are going to help agents foster and grow. And so we needed a comp plan that allowed them to do that without taking too much of the agent's money. And then these network leaders can help build team leaders and help team leaders grow. And that's what I believe the key is going to be to seeing nationwide organizations, nationwide networks, teams of teams coming out of the ground. And that's what we want to be the pioneer of, here at LPT Realty. And that's what we're going to help drive. And look, there's a couple of these happening right now. Ben Kinney has Place. Adam Hergenrother has Livian. The problem is Keller is not trying to help more people build those. That is a closed ecosystem. Big EXP agent Veronica Figueroa recently linked up with Place. Ben's trying to figure out how to do it in multiple brokerages now. There is no one out there trying to say, hey, we're going to help you be the next Ben Kinney at Place or the next Adam Hergenrother with Livian. That's what we want to do here at LPT Realty. We want to say, you know what? You can build that network too. And we're going to give you the pipes and the tools to do it because there is a need for that. These guys found a market niche with a need, but now they need some competition. And we need to give more agents access to help build those same type of network layers.
Do you see that as an avenue? Because as I was building a team, and we talked about it earlier, is finding talent is hard. So a team who has an organization and operates correctly, living inside of this network, do you see that as an avenue for them to recruit talent to their team as well?
Look, I think one of the big network value propositions is recruiting for those teams, right? Like, well, what does a team leader need? A team leader needs culture. A team leader needs help recruiting. A team leader needs help with leads. You know, like what Matt Buckley's doing right now, testing 3 different IDXs. You know, or Keegan, who was up here yesterday, who's got that deep Zillow Flex relationship. These are things they can give to agents, team leaders in other markets to help form a network. If you're really good at recruiting, if you figure out how to recruit via direct mail, recruit via Facebook ads, recruit via cold calling, that becomes portable. And so your network value proposition can become, hey, if your team joins my network, I'm going to recruit for you. You know, what a great way to get people to join. Like, you want to grow your team? We have full-time recruiters to help you do that. We have full-time marketing and pay-per-click people to help you do that. You know, we have in-house pay-per-click. We're not using third-party chime. These are the types of services that I see that network layer bringing out, in addition to just a sense of community and bringing agents together and helping them grow. But those are the exact types of things that I see the networks doing. And the other big benefit we have here is because the brokerage is growing fast, there's a lot of opportunity to grow your individual team or network. It gets harder to grow your team or your network if once you're at a brokerage that's stagnant. And one day we'll face this. When we get to 160,000 agents and the growth is slowing, new teams will have a hard time growing here because they don't get to ride the wave that we're creating. Right now, we are the fastest growing thing in the country. And that's why teams can really right now tune in and hone in and have massive growth because they can ride the wave and the momentum that we're creating. It's not automatic. Just being here doesn't mean your team's going to grow, but it is easier to grow your team or build a network when you are riding momentum of the underlying brokerage than when you're fighting that. Because if you're not riding the momentum, you're fighting a negative momentum. If you're at a brokerage that's losing more agents than it's gaining, and you're trying to build your team and grow your team, you are literally fighting a sinking ship. You're fighting a losing battle. You can do it. You can be successful. You can out-hustle it. But why? Why when there's opportunities to ride momentum to help you grow what you're trying to do?
I want to ask this because I'm thinking about this. Do you know the framework of, I think we called it middleware before, and then you said that name isn't sexy enough. But could that get diluted? Like you have a bunch of teams who believe they're running it the right way to grow. How many teams are allowed to operate in this space in the network? I see that being diluted at some point.
Now, look, I think markets are efficient, you know, and if you don't bring enough value, people aren't going to join. And I think the interesting thing here is because you are trying to align team leaders with you, you have a more sophisticated, more experienced, more seasoned person for the most part. They've already had some success. If somebody's united 4 or 5 solo agents onto their team, they are a little more discerning of a buyer than a team member. And so, you know, maybe once upon a time, they probably sat around and said, wow, if we have too many of these real estate teams, it may get dilutive, but it doesn't, because the ones who run a great team can grow. And there's always room for somebody new to come in. And, you know, as much as I dislike crypto, and crypto is having its problems right now, the one thing I do like about crypto is this idea of decentralized decision making. If you look at the old brokerage model, the Keller Williams model, Gary sold a regional franchise to this guy who sold a franchise to this guy who anoints a team leader as the head of that market center. And that command chain was dictated down from the top. And if that command chain is broken, there's no mechanism to unbreak it or to fix it. In our model, anyone can rise up and build a team. Anyone can rise up and build a network. And if you build a team or you build a network and you start to take your eye off the ball, people will leave your team or leave your network because there's no corporate protection where we anointed someone as the leader of that. And so I think it's quite the opposite. I don't think there's any scarcity here. I think that there is a higher barrier to accomplish it, because convincing sophisticated team leaders that they should give you a piece of their hard-earned commission in return for your network value proposition is a barrier you have to figure out how to cross if you want to build a network. But from there, if you don't provide the value, they'll leave you. And maybe they'll join a different network, and networks will rise and fall. But I think it's a very democratic process because the team leaders are basically voting for the network they like when they agree to pay that network a piece of their commission. And I think we're just here, again, we're the pipes. You know, I'm here to lay out the vision. We're going to provide the back end accounting and the processes and help alignment to make these opportunities available. But how the network is designed is very much up to that network leader. And then is it a value proposition that others can see and believe in? Do they want to join you? And it is a higher barrier of entry. So just because you could form a successful team doesn't mean you can transcend into a network, because now you're convincing a different type of person to align with you and pay you for your services or for your alignment.
Speaking of leaders, what attributes do you believe that leaders of an organization or a team or a network really need to hold true or vital to leadership? What are some of the things they got to bring to the table that if they just don't have it, it just doesn't work?
Real quick, before I answer that, it is 6. So if anybody wants to sneak out, I will not be offended. We're probably going to go for like another 10 or 15 minutes. But if you need to sneak out, if you have engagements, I will not hold it against you or be offended. So please do. Again, I don't want anybody to feel like they're stuck here as we go a little long. So no hard feelings. We can get you the video later, but I did want to put that out there. But yeah, look, I think leadership is, leadership is a really, like, man, it's one of these things that's super hard to define. You know it when you see it, you feel it, but can you always quantify it? Can you even really explain why? You can take someone and say, wow, I think he's a great leader. And maybe there's some things you can say, wow, they're smart, or this, that. But a lot of times you really don't know or can't put your finger on, like, what is that? What's the it factor? Or what's the intangible? Like, there's almost always something else there. We can talk a lot about integrity and honesty, and I think those are required whether you're a leader or just a good human being. And then when you get into leadership, it really is this: do people want to follow you? And people will follow you for much different reasons. And again, in our model, we're not dictating who leaders are. We're not saying, oh, this person bought the franchise, they own the market center, you have to follow them. You all can choose to follow anyone you want in this organization. And that's even part of why, looking at like EXP or Real, the leadership is almost, again, dictated by who you named as your sponsor, who's your downline. We're working very hard to bust that up culturally, to say, look, you can follow someone who isn't your sponsor. You can follow someone who's from a different organization. You can follow someone because you want to follow them, because they are what you see as the type of leader you want to be a part of. And again, this is where the network comes into play. The network can really be funded by that gap in money that we charge. So now people can pick their leaders. And this is something new. Like, this is not happening anywhere else in the industry, where you literally can pick your leader here as these networks start to come up, and as your team. Why are we so focused on teams? Teams allow you to pick your leader. Who do you want to align with? Hey, I don't like my sponsor. I don't like my downline. Great. I don't care. Join a team. Go join a team and follow that person, because that's the core of your real estate business. You don't like that? Go join a network and get another layer to feed your real estate business, and have a financial relationship, because that creates honesty. Because if they're not delivering, you can unplug, right? If you want to unplug from that franchise owner, you got to leave the brokerage. If you want to unplug from that sponsor, you got to leave the brokerage. If you want to unplug from a team because they stop providing value, you leave the team. If you want to unplug from a network because they stop providing value, you leave the network. And this is what creates true, honest relationships, where both parties can hold each other accountable. If you stop providing value, I'm going to leave. If you stop following what we're doing and following our standards, we're going to throw you out. The downline, the franchise, these old constructs don't allow that honesty, because you're linked, you're tied. There's no out. And that's where this network and team concept becomes so important for us to build the culture that can survive beyond MLM saturation, right? What does that mean? That means when we get to 160,000 agents, agent 160,001 has zero chance of coming in here and getting rich on rev share, right? Zero chance. Like, it can't happen. So while the growth and the organizations are super important to how we're building and how we're growing and how we're introducing the brokerage, ultimately, when we reach saturation and there is no more growth, there's no meteoric growth, what keeps people here? What are the ties? What are the relationships? What are the honest relationships? What are those give and take relationships to create a real estate brokerage that can survive the test of time, so that what we're doing to EXP and EXP did to Keller and Keller did to Remax and Remax did to whoever came before them doesn't happen to LPT. And that is what I am purely focused on as the CEO of this company. I have no doubt that with this amazing group, we're going to get to 100,000, 160,000 agents. How do we keep it?
Bye, everybody.
Damn. I don't know. I got too many questions, but
a team that operates at a high level, closes 1,000 transactions a year, has 80 agents, 20 admin staff. How do they fit? Like, what's the value proposition for them to be part of LPT?
Yeah. So look, I really think that at our business builder plan at $5,000 a year and our transaction fee, it's really hard to replicate the value on your own. I think the other pieces of this are the need for rev share and the need for stock are really becoming non-negotiables. Isn't quite the word yet, but when you're interviewing for your team or hiring in an independent brokerage, and they're like, "Well, do you have stock? Do you have revenue share? Do you have health insurance? Do you have this technology?" And if the answer to those are no, now the rest of your value proposition has to overcome those things that are missing. And so I think one of the great things about being linked up with a platform like us is you get to say yes to those. So then you just get to focus on your value proposition, right? Instead of saying no, but, no, but, no, but, you say yes, and, yes, and, yes, and. And I believe from a value proposition and a growth opportunity that what we charge is a number that most people could live with, right? Like if you really look at it and say, all right, if I'm going to go out and be on my own as an independent, maybe I can do it for a little less per agent. Maybe I'm a few thousand less per agent. But if I have to say no, but, no, but, no, but to, are you in multiple states? Do you have one cap for the country? Can I build my own networks and teams and things inside of you? Can I get stock? Can I get revenue share? If it's no, but, no, but, no, but, that is going to hurt your growth at some point. That is going to make it harder. You're now stagnant. You're at that level where you're stagnant. You're not able to grow. You don't have the momentum to help you grow. And so I believe that with the way we've built this plan, massive organizations can exist inside of this. And there's almost no motivation for someone to leave us and start their own brokerage. Again, we built it that way. How do we make this such that there is no motivation to go open your own brokerage? Because you may pencil it out by a few bucks. But by the time you buy Chime and you buy .loop, because what you're going to pay for 80 agents is way different than what I'm going to pay per agent for 2,000 or 10,000 or 100,000. I heard recently that the really big guys pay $4 a month for KV Core, right? If you go buy it on your own, I can't get it that cheap yet. We'll get there eventually, right? There are these arbitrage. There is this value buying. And so where brokerages in the past have not passed that efficiency back down. And so they left themselves at a cost structure where they were vulnerable. At 16,000 an agent, yeah, you can go build your own brokerage and save a whole lot of money. At 5,000 an agent, not so much. Not with everything we offer.
I
Stumped.
So I was going to ask because that's
we're
someone.
Do 2 more and then we're going to wrap it up. 2 more.
So a lot of
I'll keep
it
you out here all night.
it's someone living inside of our organization and building to that. But what happens when someone's out on the outside of the organization, living that independent brokerage or a Keller Williams team that is operating at that level? Why would they join us right now? Like, how do we pitch that to them? Because I have those conversations and sometimes I get stuck on selling the vision of what we're doing and the added benefit to them as a team owner and their team. How does LPT leverage that team to operate at a higher level and build a bigger culture inside of their organization?
Yeah. So look, I'm going to pick on Jenny Weimer. Jenny's built. Jenny's built an amazing business without rev share, without stock, without Chime, right? Without all these things. So why would she come over, right? Does it make sense? Like, we can argue there's more value there, but she built her business without it. Could she have been twice as large if we'd existed 5 years ago and she was with us? I'd say probably, but that's a different type of argument. That's a different type of conversation. And so I think that's the big thing. Someone who's built their business in spite of not having what we have, without it, is very admirable. And again, I would challenge that with all these extra bells and whistles, she could be twice as big, right? But we didn't exist back then. And so now she is where she is. And so to transport what's a very successful business without these things, right? Because if you don't need Chime and you don't need rev share and you don't need stock and you don't need anything that we offer, then the 5,000 probably is a little too expensive and we can't come to a number that would make sense, right? But if you embrace and believe that you can get even a little bit of growth, because it doesn't take a lot of extra growth to offset that little bit extra money. If that 80 agent team was it 120 or 110 because of the things we could bring to the table? They're winning. They did better than being on their own. But it's hard for someone to see that and believe in that and make the transition backward. And the really amazing thing is, and we've seen this happen with almost every model out there, usually when it clicks for people is right about the time it's too late, right? After we go public and this, we go public, the stock goes up, all of a sudden people are making crazy rev share checks and we're at agent 80,000 and the opportunity is dwindling. That's when you see a lot of people make, all of a sudden a lot of those Keller teams or whoever you're talking to, it's like, oh yeah, let's talk about it. And it's tough. It's hard because there is a risk. We're an unknown, like we're a startup. And I've got a lot of past business success and you can look to that and look, everybody in this room, for the most part, believed in that. And that's why you came over and joined. But they have to believe that too. And if they don't know me, if they don't believe in me, then it's really hard to believe that any of that's going to happen. We say, well, the stock is worthless. It'll always be worthless. He's never going to pull this vision off. He's going to get tired of wasting money and losing money. And this thing's going to crash and burn. And, there's all these reasons to not believe. And if the stock is always worth zero and the rev share is never going to happen and we're not going to grow and we're going to be stagnant, then yeah, why would you come here? But if you believe in the vision and you believe in what we're doing, then it does make a lot of sense. And so that's the first piece is they have to believe and they got to want to believe. And people who take risks in life have the biggest shot at rewards. But I think that's really what it comes down to.
That is one thing.
I think we just got a new T-shirt.
One thing Joe and I say all the time, and everyone I speak, Joey, damn, I don't know why I'm doing that, is
Joseph.
that it's believers and leaders, guys, right now. And that's something that is resonating with me because I've had those agent conversations when they're not understanding right now. And so a big part for me is finding the believers and leaders and the people in your organizations while you're growing this. That's important, So maybe one quick question, because I know when you mention these organizations, those leaders in your organization or in your network are important, so finding those people, maybe what is that conversation? Because you obviously have an amazing staff. You have some amazing leaders you built with this company. What were you looking for? What was something that stood out to you for those people, for you to take, let's say, RP funding to that level, and then now LPT?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. Loyalty is super important. When you have someone that's loyal and wants to work hard, then I believe it's our burden and our responsibility as a leader to figure out the right role for them. And if you can get good at that, if you can get good at identifying the talent and identifying the right role, even if you got to make the role up. I think a lot of us, we go at this the other way. Maybe we read the red book back in the day and the red book told us we needed this person and that person and this person and that person, but that's not who you have. You have these people over here and they don't fit that model necessarily. And so if you're inflexible and you think, I'm gonna have to fire all these really loyal people because they don't fit this model I've just been handed down from on high, you're going to burn your business down. And so I took a very opposite approach and said, hey, what are my assets? Who are my people? Let me craft the model around their skill sets. Let me craft the model around their talents. And if you can do that with people, and then you can reward that loyalty and reward that hard work by creating the model that meets what they need to do, not saying, you don't want to just do listings, or you can't just do buyers, or you're not fit for this, you're not fit for that. I'm going to throw you off my team, even though you're a really loyal, hard worker. No, let's find a role for that person, right? They got to be hardworking and loyal. That's the part you can't teach, can't fix, can't undo, but build the model around your people. It's way easier to make up titles and roles than it is to find amazing people. The second thing I will say, and this is a mistake that a lot of people made, I've made it, is we always promote people to one level higher than what they were suited to do, right? Like, you're an amazing agent, I'm going to promote you to a team leader. You're an amazing team leader, I'm going to promote you to a vice president. You're an amazing vice president, I'm going to promote you to senior vice president. And all of a sudden you suck at that job. You were great at the last job, but that doesn't always mean you're going to be good at the next job. And so how do you deal with that as a leader? You got to have tough conversations with people sometimes. Like, hey, we put you into a role. I thought it was going to work. It didn't work. We got to go back a step. And that's hard. And maybe that means you eat the delta in money so you don't penalize them financially. Like, hey, role-wise, I'm moving you back down a level, but I'm going to keep paying you at the higher level because I made that commitment to you and I put you into a role that was just one level above what you could actually do. Because great salespeople do not always make great managers. And great managers do not always make great executives. And great executives do not make great CFOs or CEOs or CTOs. And again, that's a mistake we make because we want to reward loyalty, so we continue to promote. But at some point, you will promote them right above their skill set. And that's the oh crap moment. And how you deal with that is, again, what identifies and what kind of means what you are as a leader. And so for me, it's have the hard conversation to say, hey, you got to go back into this role that's slightly different than what I thought you could do, but I'm going to continue to pay you. If I gave you a raise with that last move, I'm not going to haircut your lifestyle because I made a mistake as a leader. And that's another thing that I see a lot of. They're either afraid to have that tough conversation, or worse, they just fire them, right? They forget how great they were at the last 5 roles. And it's like, oh, yeah, they suck at this. Time to go. This isn't working. Well, you just burned an amazing asset that worked their way up to your company. And so that is a point all of you will face as you promote and as you grow. And that's one of the hardest things to deal with as a leader.
What would you say as to folks in the room that are looking to build a team and they're gonna walk away this week and this weekend they're gonna put to bed the whiteboard of their team development, right? What would you say the number one mistake that teams make that really just derail them is, so that they can avoid it?
Yeah, look, I think developing this team value proposition and really understanding it and being able to deliver on it and believing in it and committing it to your memory. If you can't do that, like a lot of people say, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna get these leads, I'm gonna do that. If you can't do that, you have failed. And if you put it out there before you know you can do it, before you figure out you can do it, that's a problem. And so the key is, look, we showed you these 2 days that teams can come in all shapes and sizes. You can lead a team off of having an amazing Facebook group, having an amazing co-working space, having the ability to buy and convert Zillow leads, having listings because you spent a lot of time farming, whatever it is, having a relationship with a big company or relos or a network of people or being a great connector. There's lots of different things you can do, but don't get that twisted and don't think, well, I'm starting a team now, so I'm going to promise everybody Zillow leads, but I've never worked a Zillow lead in my life. Right? Your team value proposition needs to be made up of things that you know you can deliver and you are confident and comfortable in. And then to take that one step further, it needs to be defendable. Right? If there's nothing defendable about your team value proposition, if you don't have that moat, we talked about this yesterday. They used to put the moats around the castles to keep them from getting stormed. If there's nothing moatable about your team value proposition, then you are destined to fail. Right? And the whole thing doesn't have to be moatable. Like, not every piece of it, but you got to have a couple little pieces in there that are unique, that are defendable, that are hard to replicate, that are hard for someone else to create, or else you will create a revolving door. Because if they can get all the same stuff somewhere else with no low cost, low barrier to entry, you cannot hold that team together. And that's where retention becomes a really tough challenge.
Guys, give Robert a round of applause. So, look at this.
Hey, thank all you guys so much. You all mean the world to me. We're on this crazy ride together, and I want to thank each and every one of you so much for believing in this vision and being here and being a part of this. And I hope that you have that little bit of motivation now. And it may not be to go start a team tomorrow, because I get it, not everybody's at that point in their career, but understand that is a real path, that is a real potential, and it is a key. If you want to have a little more flexibility in your life, have some of that freedom, start to build something that can give you a little more freedom in life, the ability to grow, create wealth, start to step out of production. It starts with right now saying, what, one day I'm going to have a team and I'm going to start building those assets now. I'm going to start building that team value proposition now. And that's the one thing I hope everybody takes away from this 2-day event.